y dos, y dos, una, y dos, una, y dos.
Hello and welcome to Cortesnyc Livestream, the podcast.
This show broadcasts out of New York City
We are your hosts, Cortesnyc,
and Carla de Puerto Rico.
and on this show we talk about art, creativity, city life from a Latino perspective. I'm a visual artist.
And I'm a singer.
And this is episode 91, Rene.
As always, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and Spotify, and on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And I'll give a quick shout out to our Instagram followers. We got Kay Jarrett, Kayla from Puerto Rico. We got Reso Bloodline from España. Reso, ¿qué más? Carla, who are you shouting out to?
Also, I'm shouting out Copycat Motion Design. Follow her on Instagram and also her YouTube channel. It's amazing. A lot of art advice for you.
And C-Buck1, longtime listener. Yo, what up, C-Buck? The Apparition. I see who else here.
Guillotine Cuts.
Guillotine Cuts, Nova NYC.
That's right.
All right, let's get on with it.
Vice Queen.
Oh, yeah, Vice Queen. All right, episode 91.
Yeah.
Rene. So some of you might be confused on what the title is. This episode, we're going to be talking about Rene Residente, the artist.
We're going to be talking about his song and music video titled Rene.
Which Rene is his real name, Rene. But his artistic name is Residente. He's a rapper from Puerto Rico.
Yeah. We spoke about him before on the podcast.
Him and his group, Calle 13.
Yeah, we talk about Calle 13 and also his album Residente.
At that time.
Yeah.
But that song came out. It's very personal. It's very like autobiographical. It's very like him, melancholic, looking into his past. Mm-hmm. So I figured I would take this opportunity to talk about my own little, open up a little bit, talk about my own little adventures into my past, and going and speaking to my high school.
Yeah.
So I did my own little journey into my past, into my childhood. And I guess I'll just open up a little bit here with a little glass of wine and share with you guys some of my personal impressions of what that was like.
Mm-hmm.
So I got invited. My son goes to the same high school I went to. Shout out Mr. Arc NYC. And, through him, in communication with the teachers, they ended up inviting me. They extended an invitation to me to go and speak on like a career day kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I never really felt like going back to my high school to either speak or be a part of like a alumni thing. It's weird. I have like a weird, and that's what I want to share with you guys. I have a weird relationship with my past that way. When I think about high school, I have to accredit a majority of my technical know-how and my training as an artist to my high school experience.
Uh-huh.
But I have such a love-hate relationship of memories of my high school that it's very mixed.
Yeah.
It's strange. So obviously because of that, I have had a hard time thinking about going back to high school. I went to high school. I graduated in 1990. High School of Art and Design is in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. I went there to become, I thought I was going to become some sort of cartoonist. Like I was going to be a famous cartoonist or somebody who's going to illustrate like Mad Magazine or do cartoons, comic strips. Like I would have been happy when I was a kid just being able to do comic books or comic strips and like make that my life. I thought that's what I was gonna do.
Yeah. And when you first started that high school specifically, you knew kind of like I'm an artist and I'm gonna become it, or
well that's the thing. So that goes to my little long story here. Little long. Here goes my story here. I went to that high school because I was kind of put in that direction when I was in junior high school. My teachers saw that I had talent, and they figured that I should go to that art high school because they knew about it. Mm-hmm. And they had heard about it, and they were like, you should go there. You can be an artist there. And I was already doing graffiti in black books, and I kind of heard from my graffiti friends that High School of Art and Design was known for graffiti because Lady Pink and some other graffiti artists had gone there. So I associated it with like, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to get to meet graffiti artists and I'm going to be maybe a graffiti artist.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought like that. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to learn from the best and I'm going to be the best. I didn't even think about the teachers. I didn't think about those things.
Not even about the academics, but more about the people I'm going to meet. I'm going to be around these people.
Exactly. And that starts the downfall of my high school experience, I guess. So I had that impression. And then when I went and applied and I auditioned for the high school, because they have an audition process and you have to show up your portfolio, I started learning that, you can be an illustrator and you can be a cartoonist and you can be
the different majors.
And I was like, wow, I could be an illustrator, I could be a cartoonist. And then, and I started like learning and opening my mind to more things. And then meeting the teachers, I started understanding like, oh, they're professionals, they work in this kind of field. And I started getting more open to these things. But I started kind of feeling outside of it somehow. I felt like an outsider.
I can understand that.
I don't know
so
why
what you knew about art was more about graffiti.
It ended up that I started identifying. I realized I identified more with graffiti and my peers than the teachers.
Right. Yeah, and that's understandable. And it's understandable that you feel as an outsider because going into a place where you know art more organically, kind of like learning from what you see and practice, not necessarily from like technical aspects, you might feel a little bit like unsure or like kind of behind maybe compared maybe to other kids that maybe had that experience.
I mean, and I think there was also a little bit of a cultural thing also because I was coming from a school that was more Latins and then going to art and design, it was more black and white and then Latin, and especially the faculty, the teachers and that. So I there was a little bit of a feeling of like, do I even belong here? I don't even know if I belong here. But anyway, long story short, my high school experience, I failed a lot of classes. I barely graduated. I had to do night school, morning school, night school, summer school. I had to do all the schools. Extra classes just to try to make up the classes I failed. I even failed art classes. Like I was bad. I was really bad. Like I was not a good student. I was very talented, and teachers all told me I was very talented, but they just were frustrated that I was a bad student. And I'll be honest, like even towards the last years of my school experience, like I was really just cheating and just doing whatever I could just to get by. Like I would copy straight up homework. Like I would just literally take my friend's stuff and just write it all down, copy it down, hand it in. Teacher didn't care. They would put a check. They wouldn't even read it. They wouldn't even bother. And that was it. And I would pass the class. So eventually I started learning, like, just play the system and you just get through. Like, I didn't even care.
Right.
Not what I recommend. This is not what I went back to high school to talk to the students about.
Please, kids, don't do this at home.
But that was my honest. Here, we're a little circle of friends here, right? We're being opening up. So here, our listeners, I'm opening up. I'm being honest. This is the truth.
Yeah.
But I did graduate. I did graduate high school. I graduated on time and everything, and I managed to pull myself together and get out in decent shape. It's just what I had to go through in the process was a struggle. And then also in high school, social networking within the street environment. A lot of fights, a lot of crew beef, a lot of graffiti beef, and all this stuff. And I got arrested during high school. For graffiti and. I started getting into trouble and a lot of things. And so my high school experience was very loaded with a lot of things that made it, I think, more difficult for me to maybe to appreciate what I really had, the opportunity that I had there at high school. So got out of that. Eventually, yes, I did go to college. Eventually, yes, I continued on. And I did make a career for myself. And I opened my own doors and I managed to get myself into different places. And voila, I'm a success. But I get invited to go back to teach, to speak, by the teachers. I get invited to go back and speak to the students. And then I'm stuck in this weird place of what should I go and talk about? Like, how do I speak to students?
Your high school experience was barely being in school, right?
Exactly. And everything that I just told you guys, I didn't tell the students at
course
all.
not.
But the minute that it was suggested maybe you could go talk for career day, I had this weird place in my brain where I was like, all these memories flashed through my head, but it was because my son was the one asking me that I kind of put all that aside, and I put all my personal feelings aside, and I looked at it through what I would think would be his lens, and I realized that through his eyes, none of this even exists. And then I started thinking about even his teachers. Like, his teachers are younger than me, and probably through their eyes, none of the things that I'm talking about even exist.
Even the building that you used to go, it doesn't
gone.
even
It's a
exist
different
anymore
building,
because it's a different building. They rebuilt the whole school. So.
Yeah, it's a new location, so it's not even like the building was the same. So I did go through a little bit of a. It took me a couple of days to kind of piece together all these feelings and thoughts and kind of work it through, and then say, you know what, like, that's in the past, and I gotta look at things differently. I'm not who I was. The school is not who it was. The teachers aren't even there anymore that might have even been there back in the day.
Yeah.
I said, you know what, let me just put all this aside and look at it through other people's lenses and see what's the right thing to do. And the right thing to do was for me to say yes, obviously, for me to say yes and focus on talking about what I am now.
Right.
And
maybe also just thinking about the positives, which is, it was hard and it was a difficult experience, but the school did gave you a foundation of who you were going to become. And because of the school is that after graduating from high school, you were able to go straight to work, or whenever you felt that you were ready, go to school, to college and everything else.
I mean, that I started this by saying, I accredit so much of what I learned and so much of who I am to my high school experience. Yeah. Even with all its mixed messages, I can't deny that I learned a lot there. Now, so maybe let me start by saying some of the positive things about high school, because I just said a whole bunch of negatives. I don't want you guys to think I'm crazy, but no, I mean, the positive things about high school was I learned discipline the hard way, but I did learn it. I learned respect for teachers. That was the first time that I really learned also that there's a lot of bullshit ass teachers that will accept
whatever
plagiarized papers and not even read it.
Them.
Not even read it, just give you a check.
Just to make their work
their
easier.
Quota. But I did meet some teachers that really inspired me in a way of discipline, self-discipline. Not discipline like they were strict with me. They were so strict with themselves that it taught me something. And I'll give you one example. There was a teacher, his name was, I think his name was Mr. Doctor, which is funny because it's like, his last name was a doctor. Yeah, but his name was Mr. Doctor. He was an illustrator. He was a watercolorist. He's somebody that I probably would not have anything in common with. I mean, he looked like Santa Claus. He had a big white beard. He was an older white man. I'll tell you the truth, he had an accent that made me think he was from somewhere else, somewhere in the United States that I didn't know about. I don't know. I don't really know where he was from. But he just didn't have an accent like what I was familiar with. And his personality was so serious about art and about his art that he would get up and come to school early before anybody else. And he would sit there, I think like for an hour and a half before school started, just doing watercolor sketches.
Wow.
And that's where if you messed up in any class, you had to make up classes by going to that morning class and sit with him. So that was his like discipline. Yeah. But that I started realizing that my punishment was his normal routine.
Right.
And I remember that weird feeling of realizing that like oh shit, like what I took it as a punishment. This man is just doing it on his own, and he enjoyed it, and he would sit there with his other teachers would join him, and they would just talk and like, hey, and they always had coffee and donuts. So I would start buying that's when my habit of buying a coffee and a donut in the morning started with that. Like they would buy a donut and a coffee. So before going to class, I would buy a donut and a coffee so I could sit there with them while they're having their donuts and their coffee, and I would have my donuts and my coffee.
And I'm gonna do my
aquarelas. And I'm gonna do my watercolor sketching. And actually, I didn't do watercolor sketching. I did pencil sketching. He did watercolors. To me, watercolors was too advanced for me. To me, that was like what masters did. Looking back at it, it seems silly now, but that was my mentality. Like I just felt so disattached from any of the materials. I felt like it wasn't me. No, he would do the watercolor sketches, and I would just sit there watching him like I was watching some sort of master working with oil paint, and I would just work in pencil and just sketch. But that discipline, that was something that I really took away from that experience, and I wish I could have told this to the students this time around, but to explain to them that
I'm sure you're gonna go back.
but for me to explain that to them would be for me to explain why I was there.
Right.
And the negatives
and
that took me to that morning class. And that's why I felt really uncomfortable. Like for me to tell you the learning lessons, I'd have to tell you what I did wrong.
Exactly.
And for me to admit that to new students that are going to be like, old man, what the hell is wrong with you? That was years ago. Get over it.
What did you do?
Get over it. Because the youth see it like that. They'll probably see it like, that's not our problem and it shouldn't be yours anymore. But I guess it's something that you carry with you. I carry with me not as a trauma. I hope you guys don't take it as a trauma.
No, but
I take it with me as
a learning lesson.
It's a badge. It's a badge of accomplishment, of learning, of kind of like those little experiences made me earn my place sitting next to them.
Right.
Who knows what stuff they had in their past that made them be these people that would sit down. You know what I mean? In the morning.
You never know.
Who knows what they did? But I mean, this is a different time. Those teachers didn't open up to you like that. You know
right.
What I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess that's also me not taking that in this time that I went to speak to the kids. So anyway, positive experiences. There was that. There was a graffiti contest that I entered. One of the teachers pushed me to get into it. He would always make fun of me and telling me I'm always doing these little graffiti things in these black books, and like he would be like, if you just put half of that energy into your regular classwork, you would be passing these classes. And then when there was a graffiti contest, he's the one that told me about it. He's like, why don't you go and enter that contest? Like they're having a contest and they're giving away prizes. Why don't you do that instead? Do something with yourself. And he talked to me like that, like do something with yourself. Like you're such a bum. But I know he would say it with a laugh, but that was his personality, that he would insult you, and it hurt. But I entered and I won, and I won first place, and I got my black book, I got my markers. And
how was he after you?
It didn't faze him. He was like he was that guy that was like, yeah, no shit, like that was yours.
Right.
Like his attitude was like, you just had to go claim it.
Right.
It was already yours. Nobody else was really competing with you in that.
That's great.
But you're not even paying attention to what's happening around you.
Sometimes you need people like that in your life, like really straight up. This is what you're doing, and that way you can. It's like a wake up call.
I feel like I did miss an opportunity there. That if I could rewind time, I would go back and ask them so many questions.
Yeah.
Especially about their personal life. About their relationships, about their families.
I mean, but
it never dawned on me that, and I don't know. I think like that's something that I kind of regret.
Yeah.
But quickly, with the little time that I have left, my son invites me to go speak in the school. I say, fine, let's do this. I talk a little bit with his teachers. I realize that his teachers are not like me either. So I'm like, okay, you guys come from a whole different place. That's fine. Like, I think they were, I have a lot of respect for them. I think they're genuine people and very, they're doing a good thing with these kids.
Yeah. They're
good teachers. I could tell that they're actually doing a good thing. But I could tell right away they're just not like me. And I was like, I'm going to have to really adjust what I'm going to say. I got to think about and prepare what I'm going to say. So the things that I went through, I thought about, number one, what advice would I give to somebody to keep them in school? And I just kept thinking to myself, if I could just reach there has to be in this crowd, there has to be kids with new problems, new things. It's probably social media related. Yeah. And it's not like what I used to go through, which was physical, but it would be maybe more social media related. And I was thinking if I could only even reach a couple of them and let them know that that what they're going through shouldn't be a roadblock, and that it just makes you stronger, and that you got to navigate these waters. I thought about talking about social media, and I did talk to them about that. I talked to them about connectivity and communication, how important it is.
Yeah.
That is something that will never go away, especially in as an artist, and especially in that high school.
Yeah.
The need for communication and learning how to communicate and expressing yourself with your peers. Don't isolate yourself. Don't just sit there in your own little world. Open up and communicate with your peers and your teachers, and things are going to be better for you. The doors are going to open up. I talked about being resourceful, teaching yourself. I talked about, that I was being given an hour to talk to them, and that their teachers are being given a year, let's say, or a semester, whatever it might be, to talk to them.
Yeah.
We have a limited time as adults. We have a very limited window of opportunity to speak to them. They need to take advantage, take whatever we give them, and then learn on their own beyond that.
Yeah.
If you can learn anything in high school or learn anything in an art school, learn how to teach yourself.
Yeah,
Respect
for sure.
what the teachers are doing and learn how to teach so that you can teach yourself. I explained to them also that the techniques and the methods that I learned back in high school were gone within 5 years. 5 years after high school, people were not even doing that anymore. They were on computers, they were on software, they were in a whole different place.
Yeah.
The media that we used to take in, the comic strip that I wanted to have in the newspaper, made no sense by the time I graduated.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna be a comic strip artist, and I was gonna do Garfield and Heathcliff and and all these Peanuts, Snoopy. That doesn't exist. It didn't exist anymore. By the time I graduated, nobody cared about that.
Yeah.
There was no money for that. And I was trying to explain to them also that what they do, what they're learning now in school, probably is not going to affect them in 5 years. In 5 years, they're probably going to be onto some new thing, some multimedia, 3D or virtual reality something, and they're going to be on a different level. And so they're going to have to learn how to teach themselves. So the best thing they could do is pay attention to their teachers and how the teachers teach, and how the teachers do the exercises, so that they can learn how to do their own exercises once they graduate. I did have some good communication with some of the students. I felt surprised that some of the students were as open to communicate as they were. I was surprised. A lot of talent. I saw a lot of talent. I was really impressed. I still had that feeling I still had a little bit of a feeling like I don't belong. Believe it or not. I'm thinking about it right now. I did still have that feeling like, do I even belong here?
Yeah.
As an adult, as a successful artist, as an art director, and I'm there I don't know if I even belong here. And that's a weird thing to have to admit to yourself, But I made the most of it, and I appreciate my son for giving me that opportunity. I owe him for that. All right, you guys, take advantage of the high school experience that you're having now. If you guys are in high school, take advantage of it. Enjoy these times, because you don't have them forever. It's only 4 years out of your life. If you're in college, enjoy your college life. And if you're learning somewhere and you have a teacher, a good teacher, appreciate the teacher you have.
Si no estás haciendo todo igual, no tiene ningún color el paso que hace. Separa menos tiempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2.
Yes.
Bueno, me desahogué un poco ahí.
Sí, te desahogaste. Hiciste como René.
I had to. I got
Estaba
inspired.
ahí ya casi, oh my God.
I got inspired, man. That song.
7550822.
Yeah.
A ver si contestan.
Exactly.
Pues
Talk to me about it.
vamos a hablar del video de Residente. El video de la canción Residente de René. It came out on February 27th. And for me, it's one of the most personal and kind of like emotional songs that Residente have made. Like, he had made emotional songs before, but more like angry, emotional in that way. But this is emotional on a deep, personal emotion.
I think that the closest thing that I saw from him like this song would be the other song, Latino America. Yeah. And that one is emotional, but he's talking about everybody. And he's talking about broader emotions and the emotions of all of us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Here he's talking about his emotions.
His emotions.
While still touching all of us with his emotions.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
we all identify with everything that he was talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the song, he talks about his moments of sadness. He expresses, death in his family, in his friend circle, his moments of depression and overwhelming times. And he talks about dealing with fame and concerts and, even when he doesn't feel like it. That one of the lines that he says is, el concierto está lleno, pero yo estoy vacío. So the concert is full, but I'm empty. Which is very weird because it's not weird. Like, we go through these things. But if you see a concert of Residente or if you go to a Residente concert,
it's not like he's singing emotional songs.
He is full of energy the whole time. Like, the whole time he's jumping. He's not quiet. He's screaming. He's singing. He's full of energy. So for me to have that visual of him feeling empty in a concert, and his concerts are kind of like open spaces, so it's kind of like a party. We're all together and we're fighting together, and to see that, I'm like, wow. So when you were going through those raw moments, you were really kind of like pushing yourself, and I can understand how hard that can be.
I mean, we talked a little bit about this. He is talking about emotions that he obviously definitely felt.
Yeah.
But, I can see how an artist can put those emotions aside and bottle them up.
Yeah.
Get through the work, especially if the work is street related, whether it's rap, even graffiti.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to put all your personal stuff and bottle
aside,
it up.
Yeah.
And do the thing that you're doing to get it done.
Yeah.
Because it is an aggressive type of art.
Yeah.
It's a type of art that is not a passive art. It needs energy. And I understand that. I totally understand that. And I could see how maybe he was at a concert. And maybe at the concert, he was fine.
Yeah.
And maybe during that time period, he felt empty.
Yeah.
Or maybe once he,
Yeah,
on a break,
when
he felt empty.
Yeah.
I could totally see that without it affecting his.
Yeah, when the song first came out and he posted on Instagram, he explained that 2 years ago he was in Mexico before a concert and he was feeling very sad, very depressed, and he was calling his mom because he was feeling like he wanted to jump out the balcony.
Wow.
And that's when he realized that, he needed a break. And luckily, one of his friends was staying with him that night. So after talking to his mom, he finally went to the concert, but he really didn't want it to. And the concert went fine, he said. But then, he went back to the hotel and his friends stayed with him, and that he told his team that he was feeling some type of way just in case, so that they could take care of him and keep an eye on him. But yeah, that's when he started. And he also he had a conversation with Zoe Saldaña, and he was explaining that this song didn't start as a song. Like, it was just kind of like a free writing exercise for him, just to like write down everything that was going through his mind.
So let's give a quick description of the song.
Yeah. So the song is
not the video, but the song. The song is basically him starting off with his mom. It's like a little throwback, a montage of voices of a voice actress playing his mom, talking to him as a kid, doing a thing of like, hey, come on, let me teach you something. Kind of like heads, shoulders, knees, and toes, like that, but a Spanish version of it, where he's teaching the little boy a nursery rhyme to teach the body parts. Yeah. And then he goes into his rap. His rap is more like a spoken word piece. No drum beats. It's just only strings, like orchestral strings
and
in the background,
or something like that.
Yeah, just to give you that emotional vibe. The whole song is basically spoken word with strings, with violins.
Yeah, and through the song, he's basically describing his experiences as
from his childhood,
when he was a child, but also
his adolescence, his family, his parents, his stepfather, his mom, their relationship,
his problems already as an adult, and everything. Like he starts of him as an adult, and the problems that were going through his mind right there. And then he kind of like do a dive deep into, but I remember when I was a child.
Exactly.
And everything that we had, and the struggles, but then also the good things and the memories and things we used to do together. And
he goes through a lot of the feelings that I mean, things that I identified with. Some of the lyrics were like parts where he was talking about wanting to go back to his childhood where his friends would come look for him to play.
Yeah.
Things like, having conversations with his stepfather and like, having arguments that would end up getting just kind of resolved by watching baseball. A game of baseball. Like just, things that like when you're a kid, you don't realize they're a thing that you're going through, that a human interaction that you're having. You think that you're just getting through that day and you're just thinking about how can I get through this so I can move on to the next day.
Yeah.
But these are memories that you're making.
Yeah.
And these are experiences that you're having, and if you learn from them, you take from them into your adulthood, and you don't forget. Another one that stands out to me is when he started talking about the friends that he lost.
Yeah.
He talks about one of his best friends getting
Christopher,
killed.
that got killed by the police.
Got killed by multiple cops.
Yeah.
Then later on in the verse, in the song, he starts talking about that by a certain age, most of his friends were already dead.
Yeah.
I can't say that my friends are all dead. As I get older, I'm sure I'm going to start feeling that way. But a lot of friends do disappear, whether they get into their own personal lives, their lives change, their personalities change.
Yeah.
Some of them get locked up. They end up doing crime or doing something. They leave the country. But these kind of things that happen in life, especially if you're growing up in a way that your friendships are not based on, hey, how look at us, we have so much money, let's go on trips together.
No, exactly.
But it's just based on just regular living. If you're available, I'm available, let's go play.
Yeah.
I know you from the block, I know you from around the way. If you're not doing anything, hey, what are you doing? Let's just sit here and not do anything together. Okay.
Right. And spend time together, but then also getting to know each other in a way that it becomes like a brotherhood, like a sisterhood, and things like that. And then actually that part, when you were talking about like you regret asking questions to your teachers, I was thinking that you regret that now because you have the wisdom of knowing what it means to ask questions, right? And get to know somebody. But maybe that's the thing also with this Residente song is it's more like a melancholic way of looking to your past.
Yeah.
Because you have the wisdom now of what does it mean,
right,
and what does it didn't meant at that time. So now you can think about it and be like, oh my God, yeah, those were special moments. But you really don't want to go back to those moments because you're gonna really, if you go as the child you were, you're just gonna relive it all over again. Yeah, right. Yeah. So you want to go back with what you have already learned. That's something I get from it.
What, any other quotes that stood out for you?
Yeah. He said in one part like cometo errores pero hago lo que pueda. Like, he's admitting something I get about Residente also is kind of like he's very stubborn. Yeah. And kind of like in a way like I'm always right type of personality. And then when he said, cometo errores pero hago lo que pueda, like after describing everything wrong that went in his life, he's still trying to survive basically, and he's still trying to make the best of it. Another one is el estrés me tiene enfermo. So he's stressed out, he doesn't know how to deal with it, so he's just drinking and just hoping for the best.
The drinking part, the alcoholism, he says that he's one of his lines is I write better when I'm drunk. Yeah, that one hit me. I like drinking. Sometimes I go a little overboard. For the most part, I have it under control, but I do sometimes go overboard. And I know different parts of my life, I really have gone overboard. And for him to say something like that was just kind of a little hard for me to accept. Like that you really feel that you are better when you're drunk. Like I would never say I'm better when I'm drunk. Like I know if I'm drinking, I'm trying to escape something. I'm trying to just numb myself and kind of like let my brain go. But for him, that line coming from him, especially a man with his career and his talent, just that one hurt. I was like, damn, like how are you gonna say that? And in the video, so now we'll say some little bits about the video.
Yeah.
The visual in the video is him walking around a baseball field, an empty baseball field, and he's walking the bases.
Yeah.
All the way around from walking back home. And touching each base. And
starting from first, second, third, and then the final base is home.
And he's carrying a bottle of, I guess, rum.
Yeah.
As he's rapping, little by little, it reveals that as he's moving his hands, doing the typical rap gestures, he's got a bottle in his hand.
Yeah.
And you realize he looks like a typical drunk guy walking down the street talking to himself.
Right. Yeah.
And you get the bigger picture, and you're like, whoa, like this looks bad.
Yeah.
You know, and that stuff hit me. Like when I saw that, I was like, this is not good. Like I was like, this is a bad feeling. You know.
And another interview that I saw of him, he said like he kind of stopped drinking like that. Like, I mean, he'll drink here and there, and if he's writing, he'll drink, but not as when he was in that stage where it feels like he was really numbing himself with alcohol. He's trying just to, like, make it better now. And another visuals of the video is that they show like his old house. They actually recorded the house that they used to live in the Calle 13. And towards the end of the video, they show like photos and memories of him and his family when they used to be children, all his memories of other girlfriends and his ex-wife and his son.
That was so a quick. All right, so a quick thing, just a quick summary of the video. Basically, the music video starts off like the song. It kind of has the whole thing about like just streets of, old streets that he grew up in. Yeah. And then you hear the voice of his mom talking to him, doing the nursery rhyme. And then the whole video is just him walking the bases around this baseball field that he used to play in, I'm assuming in his old neighborhood. Yeah. And he's wearing a baseball jersey and he's drinking. And you're just close up on him from the shoulders up. And he just rapping straight to the camera. And it's just really down to earth, really emotional in his face, like a lot of emotion and anguish in his eyes and his mouth. Yeah. You could tell like it's really hitting him. He's got headphones on, so I'm assuming that he had the music playing in his ears. Yeah. To kind of really get him more emotional. That, and then also because he was in an open space, he didn't want the song to everybody in the neighborhood to hear the song. Especially such an emotional song. Yeah. And then at the end of him walking all the bases, he drops the bottle and goes to hug his son. Yeah. He shows his son's face for the first time in that video. Right. Yeah. And then that's when they cut to music that he had quoted earlier, saying that when he was a child, they would listen to Ruben Blades in the house and all that, which all of us Latinos would identify with some version of that. Yeah. And then you hear Ruben Blades, doing his kind of like a solo Afro harmonies, Afro harmony, Afro-Caribbean harmonies, and you hear the tambores and the congas and all that. Daniel Conga is the one playing the congas. Oh yeah. Yeah. And then you see all the photos and everything. And then one of the images that got me from that is seeing. They show a photo of his childhood car, I guess, or one of his, maybe his first car, maybe the car his mom had or something. And it's just a little old hoopty. And then you see the photo, and then boom, you see it there on the baseball field. And that just got me. I was like, how many photos have I seen of my father's old cars, of us as little boys? If we took a long drive with my dad and we would pull over and take photos in front of the car. My aunt, I remember my aunt, she loved cars, and she had an old Trailblazer or something like that. And I remember me and my cousin taking pictures in front of that in Miami. My other aunt, that one time she had a Corvette or like a muscle car. Like, it was, I remember us just those old memories of like being happy to have these little material things. Yeah. And the memories that you built around those vehicles. And also, I think also tying in with the music, the fact that it was a Ruben Blades music. Exactly. That's where you heard that music blasting out of those cars. Yeah. It's just that really got me. Like that really got me right. I was like, damn, like that. It was real. It felt real. Even though for a minute I stopped looking at the video and I was living the video. You were thinking of your own memories. Yeah, it was crazy. But another point, and I'll let you get back on it. But another point that got me was in the verses. Especially in the beginning, he starts talking about that he was going through a divorce. Yeah. And so much, and I don't want to turn it into the, hey, let's feel bad for divorced fathers thing, but so much of this song and so much of the stuff, so much of the stuff that he's talking about, going through and expressing,
Yeah.
I think a lot of divorced fathers go through that.
Yeah.
Regrets, trying to turn back time. Not that you want to go back.
Yeah.
You don't want to go back. I mean, there's a reason why all these things happen.
Right.
And that things turn out the way they turn out.
But it's just like the overthinking and
The
the nostalgic aspect of
wanting
it.
to go back to a childhood before any of these relationships even existed.
Yeah.
Wanting
so-
to go back to a time where you didn't even think about
Yeah.
family, having your own family or having your own kids or anything.
Yeah, because that's a lot of what he's talking about in the song also. Is like going back to those times where responsibilities were minimum and where we were just happy, thinking about, being together and taking time together. For me, one of the things, almost the whole video, when the first time I watched it, I was almost crying at the end. But it's just watching it because it reminds me a lot of Puerto Rico. Like, that's Puerto Rico. And
Time lost.
yes, that's
time that's gone.
time has gone, but then also that's who we were. Like, our single mothers raising us and just spending time with our friends that were live like 10 minutes away.
I didn't think about it
So
like that,
just having those kind of like things that at that time, you were taking from granted. And he was living those times to the fullest, because you can see in what he's saying, but at the same time it was kind of like, well, this is just life.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just life. Like, it was una comodidad que ahora mismo no se tiene if you're living in another state, if you're living in another city, if you live in another country. Your family is not together as we used to be 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So yeah, that's like the whole concept of old Puerto Rico just got me. And even the school system and everything, like I went to a school for 12, 13 years. You don't see that here in New York or United States. So, it was just very memorable.
Yeah. All right, guys, go check
Nostalgic.
it out. The song's called RENE by Residente.
That's right.
You wanted me to teach you, right? This is street reality.
Hablando español, Carla. Can you even speak Spanish right now? Or are you too
Claro.
emotional?
No, I can speak Spanish.
What do you got?
Tenía ahí más cosas que decir, pero pues lo dejamos para el próximo.
Bueno, it's a
episodio.
speed round. Dale.
Okay, discipline. How you say discipline?
Disciplina.
Oh, wow. Great.
Disciplina.
Okay, how you say watercolors?
Watercolors, acuarelas.
Okay, all right.
That one I learned later in life. But yes, acuarelas is watercolors. What
okay.
else?
How do you say punishment?
Punishment. Castigo.
Wow.
Castigo.
All right. How do you say routine?
Routine. Routine is rutina.
Okay. Wow. You did it. How you say get over it?
Get over it. In Spanish, get over it. Is it one expression? Is it one?
It's one word.
It's a word?
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna have to say superalo.
Wow.
Yeah? That's your expression.
Yeah.
That's yours or your culture's expression.
Yeah.
Superalo.
But it
Okay.
is.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
I've
Get
heard
over
you
it.
say it, and that's why. Okay, superalo, get over it.
Okay. How do you say badge?
Badge. Badge. Placa?
It could be, but there's also another word. Is insignia.
Insignia?
Insignia.
It's a badge?
Yeah. Can be
Como
a
un
badge.
escudo.
Como un escudo. Okay. How do you say regret?
Regret.
Or to regret?
Yeah. That's a good one. Oh, man, I'm drawing a blank. You
That's
got
right.
me. You got me in the feelings.
Yes.
Regret.
Something that you don't do. I think you don't do.
I don't do too much regretting, don't I? Yo soy cabeciduro.
Yeah, definitely.
I march forward. I don't
You
dwell
are.
in the back. If you see me dwelling in the back, something's wrong.
Yeah.
If I'm dwelling in the past, it's
Usually
because
you're just like, you know what? Fuck it. Keep
Yeah.
walking.
my kids make me dwell in the past. My kids do it to me. They get me. Maybe that's another part of the video that it got me.
Yeah.
Was the fact that he put his kid in it, and it like that's a trigger also for fatherhood.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know.
Okay, so to regret is arrepentirse.
Oh, I know that word. I was drawing a total blank.
I know.
You blindsided
I
me
know.
with feelings.
Yes. That's what I do.
Arrepentir. Or
To regret.
arrepentimiento.
Arrepentimiento will be regret. I think. Arrepentimiento. Arrepentimiento.
Got it.
Yeah. And how do you say, this is my last one, connectivity?
Connectivity.
Yeah.
Connectivity is conectividad.
Yeah,
Conectividad.
you're right.
Connectivity. All right, I got a couple for you.
Okay, go.
Is there a difference between, well, how do you say teacher? Like high school teacher?
Maestro.
Maestro. So what's profesor?
Like college teacher.
A college teacher is a professor,
Yeah.
and a high school teacher is a maestro?
Yeah.
How is a high school teacher a master? And a college teacher is a professor.
I think that's like the difference I see. I know that school teachers sometimes they were always also called like professors, but I
Okay,
don't know.
maestro,
For me, when
profesor.
when I
All
when
right.
I went to college, like es el profesor.
Okay. And then I guess on the topic of Rene, how do you say like memorabilia? Like all
Memorabilia.
yeah, like all the stuff that he had on the side, all the old photos and all that. How would you say that? How would you describe that? Like a scrapbook.
Existe la palabra memorabilia,
Okay, but that's not used that way, probably, right?
but yeah, I think it is actually.
How would you describe it as?
Oh, maybe como un álbum de fotos, álbum de recuerdos, como si todas esas
Álbum
fotos
de
están en
recuerdos.
en un mismo sitio, como un álbum de recuerdos.
Album de
fotos.
recuerdos, yeah. Like an
Yeah.
album of memories,
Which
recuerdos,
that's
memories.
another thing also, like about the video. Seeing all those pictures also remind me of all those books that my mom used to keep with all the
Exactly.
pictures.
That we don't even have
Like
anymore.
we don't have anymore.
We don't have physical.
Because we have all the photos on the freaking phones, and actually sometimes I
online.
start thinking about that. I'm like, what memories do we have? Because everything is online. What if the computer crashed? Like, what happened with those memories? But that's it, guys.
You needed 2 episodes to get through this song.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we made it to another episode. Thank you, Carla. Thank you. I feel so much Spanisher right now with all my
Yes.
Spanish words. I hope
And
our
tanto
listeners do.
sentimiento.
Yeah, man, I can. All right, you guys, tune in until next episode.
Yeah. See you.
See you guys soon.